Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful puffy hairband. Easy to make, about an hour. You can do it in different colors. The materials you're going to need: any colored yarn as long as it's worsted, a hook, and a tapestry needle. Off, let's make a slip knot, and we do that by wrapping the yarn around our two fingers and then crossing it in the back, feeding it through, taking our crochet hook and pulling it tight. And we pick up our yarn and we're going to do some chain. We're going to hook it, pull it through, hook it, pull it through. That's how you make a chain. And let's count 55. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I've done 55 chain. Right now what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's straight. To do that, let's lay it down or run it through your fingers, whatever you feel more comfortable, and just make sure that your chain is straight, so it's not twisted. There, so it looks pretty straight. So I'm going to take my crochet hook and I'm going to insert it into the slip stitch. Remember the first little link we did? And I'm going to pick up my yarn, which is here, my tail is here, and I'm going to hook it and pull it through both loops, the beginning and the end, and that creates our little joint. So now what you want to do is you want to make sure it's a little bit tight. So just tighten it and tighten your tail end. So there we go. And at this point, let's start to do our crochet. And what we want to do is we want to chain 2. So it's 1, 2, and now we're going to do, make sure your tail is in the bottom. So there it is in the bottom, and you're crocheting into the first stitch here, or actually the second stitch, and you want to do a called a puff stitch. And to do that is you hook up your yarn once, insert it into the chain, hook it, pull it through once. You should have 3 on. Hook it or pick up your yarn into the same stitch, hook it, pull your yarn through. So now you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hook it, insert it into the same chain stitch, pick up the yarn and pull it through, and you should have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so make sure that they're fairly loose. Now you pick up your yarn and you want to pull through all of them. Sometimes it's difficult because when you're doing the chain, it's a little stiff. Once you get through finishing the chain row, it'll be a breeze. But if you have to do it in a couple of turns, like maybe 2 at a time, and then you do another 2 and then another 1, there you go, and now pull it through, so it just makes it a little bit tighter. And then what you want to do is you want to complete the puff stitch, and that completes your puff stitch. And now what we do is we chain 1. So there's your 1 chain. I'll go through it again really slow. So the pattern is puff stitch, skip 1, puff stitch, skip 1, puff stitch. So you're crocheting into every second. So this is our puff stitch. We're going to skip this one and we're going to go into this one. So we pick up our yarn and we insert into our chain, pick up our yarn, pull through once, make sure it's loose. You want to crochet really loose when you're doing this. Pick up our yarn, insert into the same stitch, pick up our yarn, pull it through. You should have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick up our yarn into the same stitch, pick up our yarn, pull it through. You should have 7. And now you want to make sure that it's fairly loose. Pick up your yarn and all through all 7. And if you can't do it in once, because like I said, it is tight, do it in a couple. And now you see you have this big hole here. You want to push it down and tighten it. And now you finished your puff stitch with just 1 stitch. Okay, so that's your puff stitch pattern. Chain 1. Skipping this one, inserting the next one. Pick up our yarn, inserting it into the stitch. picking it, pulling it through once. You should have 3 hooks on. Make sure that it's loose. Pick up a yarn, inserting it into the same stitch. Pick up the yarn, pull it through. You should have 5. Make sure that it's loose. Hook it into the same stitch. Pick up the yarn, pull it through. You should have 7. Okay, so now you hook up the yarn and through all 7. I have to do in a couple of steps too. And then tighten it. And now you want to finish the puff stitch, and this completes it. Chain 1, and you're ready to go. And this is how it's starting to look like. You have your puff stitch, you skipped a space, puff stitch, skipped a stitch, a space, puff stitch. Okay, so let's just do it and carry on till we get to the end of the row. Okay, I'm coming near the end, so I want to make sure that this is not twisted. So take our bottom and kind of hold it like that. Make sure it's all good. And we are at the top. This is our bottom. So I see I have a couple of more stitches here. And I will just... And if it's twisted, it doesn't matter. You can have it twisted as long as it's kind of straightened out. So I'm just finishing my last stitch. 2 and 3. There we go. And just gonna pull it through. One more. Tightening it. Finish my puff. This puff is just so forgiving. It doesn't matter if it's twisted, but what you don't want to do is you wouldn't want your joint twisted. So again, run it through. Make sure that it's straight. Okay, looks good. So we have our bottom. This is our joint right here. You can tell. And I'm just gonna pick up my yarn here. Okay, so now you take your crochet hook and you insert it into the joint here. Pick up the yarn and pull it through, and this creates a joint, and tighten it, and there you go. Okay, so again, check it, make sure that it's straight. Yep, mine is straight, so it's pretty good. And we're going to carry on. We're going to chain 2, and this is how you're going to do it. You're going to do 4 rows of these. So when you come to the end, you join, you chain 2, then you carry on. But now that you're into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th row, it's so much easier because you're not going into chain, you're going into the holes in between the puff stitches. And it's just so easy now. Okay, so let's go. So you pick up your yarn into the holes between the puff stitch. So we go through 1, 2, and 3. Pick up our yarn and pull through all of them. Tighten it. Finish our puff stitch, chain 1. Okay, pick up our yarn into the next hole. This makes it so much easier. So same, once, hooking it, twice, hooking it, 3 times, hooking it, 7 on, pick up our yarn and pull through all 7. And tightening it, finishing our puff stitch, and chain 1. Okay, I'm coming to the end. There's my marker, and I want to join in here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook in here and pull through. There we go, and we have a joint. So I finished my 2nd row, and it's looking pretty good, I must say. So again, we're going to carry on now with the 3rd row and then the 4th row. So I've chained up 2, and at this point what I want to do is I want to take a marker, which is any kind of different colored thread or yarn, putting it right behind the chain here and hold it tight. And let's do our stitch into our first hook here. So we'll go once and twice and 3 times. Here we go, making it fairly loose. And it's just easier to see where the marker is, and then you don't make any mistakes. Okay, and tightening it, finishing, chaining 1. Okay, so just carry on your own. This is the third row, and then do the fourth row, and I'll show you. I'll come back and show you how to finish it. So I've come to the end, so I'm just going to join them. There's my marker, and I've done my 4 rows. Take this marker out. So this is how it looks like. I've done my 4 rows. So now I'm going to finish it. To finish it, what we want to do, we want to slip stitch into every stitch, and that'll be, see our puff stitch here? We want to do 1 here, 1 in the hole, 1 here, 1 in the hole. So it's just under the puff stitch. So if you look under the, so let's do the first one. So you don't want to be, so you chain up 1, because we're just, so that's all we do, we just chain up 1, okay? So this is the first one, not this one, but this one underneath the puff stitch. So we insert our hook and we just pull through. Next one is the hole. Insert our hook, pull through both. Okay, now underneath the puff stitch, insert our hook, pull through both. Oops. Okay, into our little hole, insert the hook, pull through. Okay, underneath the puff stitch, again, there's a little hole there, just find it and pull through. Now into this hole in between the puff stitch, insert, pull through, just above the next puff stitch, pull through. So just keep doing this all the way around, and I'll just, so I've come to the end of the row. I think this is my last slip stitch right here. Okay, so now this is the, remember when we chained up 1, so we want to just insert the last one and pull it through. But this time what we're going to do is we're going to finish it. So we're done with this. It's looking good. So let's just cut our yarn. So we cut our yarn, and now we're going to hook our thread, and we're going to pull it all the way through and tighten it, and we are done. So at this point, take your, you can use your fingers, you can use your crochet hook, you can take one of these tapestry needles, and you just want to weave in the ends. And to do that, just go along the chain at the top and at the bottom, and just go back and forth. Just go underneath the chain, like back and forth. So just keep doing that, and weave it in all the way, the bottom and the top. Cut it right on the puff. If you cut it right on the puff, and you can't really see it. So there, snip it there, and it's weaved in. Take a needle and thread, a green thread, it has to match, and just do one little slip knot, and it makes it really secure. But I think it's fine. I just use it like this.